Good evening. There's less than 24 hours until counting begins in the New South Wales election. Gladys Berejiklian and Michael Daly set a frantic pace on the final full day of campaigning because they both know the leadership of our state is very much still up for grabs.
Two leaders, two very different choices. On the right, the coalition.
Say and spell your name, thanks.
And both leaders still in the race to be Premier.
And Sean Berry joins us now. It's been a long campaign and it's expected to be tight.
Yes, Liz, in conversations with both leaders, they've told me they're both starting to feel quite exhausted, but they will be back out again tomorrow morning for one last sell. That Labor's costings are both correct and sound. Liz?
Thanks, Sean. And Peter Fegan is in the Labor leaders electorate of Maroubra for us tonight. Peter, Michael Daly covered familiar ground today.
Right, Liz, it was back to Allianz Stadium for Labor leader Michael Daly today. He was getting stuck into the coalition over their controversial decision to knock down and rebuild the stadium, costing taxpayers $730 million. He then headed west to Penrith in what was his last outing with voters before tomorrow's election, but he wasn't alone. When you're on the hustings, you hustle, and that's what both leaders were doing today.
Thanks for coming today, appreciate it.
Forget that. The best way to stay up to date tomorrow is to watch our coverage from 5 p.m. Peter Fegan, 7 News.
With the margin predicted to be tight, the minor parties and independents are shaping up to be major players in our next government.
All colours of corflutes and flyers in Camden, Mark Latham, a familiar face.
Really good, thanks.
Serena Andaloro, 7 News.
The implications of tomorrow's election will reach beyond our border. Mark Riley is in Canberra for us tonight. And Mark, how much interest will our federal leaders be taking in the result?
Liz, there'll be a very keen federal interest. The winner will say it has clear implications and the loser will say it has none, of course. But Scott Morrison will be hoping voters get their anger off their chest tomorrow over Malcolm Turnbull's dumping and don't wait to take it out on him in May. He knows he'll have to carry New South Wales to have any chance of clinging on to power himself. And tomorrow will give us a good guide to the chances of him doing that. Liz?
Thanks, Mark. The Prime Minister is facing pressure to declare whether his party will preference One Nation ahead of Labor at the upcoming election.
A fast train announcement railroaded by union protesters.
And I wanted you to take a good look.
It didn't end well. Mark Riley, 7 News.
A meeting is underway in Turkey condemning the country's government for words that appear to threaten anyone travelling to Gallipoli for Anzac Day. Hugh Whitfeld is in Istanbul for us tonight. Hugh, one of the aims is to guarantee the safety of New Zealanders and Australians.
Liz, Australia and New Zealand are working together to make sure anyone who travels here to commemorate the 11,000 lives lost in World War I is safe. New Zealand's Foreign Minister Winston Peters will meet with his Turkish counterpart to make sure that is the case. Right now, the travel advice for Turkey is at its second highest level. It could be raised to do not travel if the talks here don't go well. Liz?
Thanks, Hugh. To New Zealand now, and it's 1 week since a lone gunman opened fire inside 2 mosques, killing 50 people. The grief is still raw, with the nation pausing for 2 minutes of silence.
A week ago, at this moment, the sounds of semi-automatic gunfire filled Christchurch. Today, silence.
Theresa May has won a Brexit reprieve. We'll have the latest next in Prime7 News. Also, the chilling moment of ferry flipped, taking women and children with it, and high wire horror, the rehearsal that went terribly wrong.
This finance report brought to you by GIO Platinum Car Insurance.
Australian shares had a positive finish to the week. The major miners helped to lift the market over the last few days, one Aussie dollar by 71.06 US cents. Returning overseas, and at least 94 people are dead after a ferry capsized in Iraq. The vessel was packed with family and friends celebrating Persian New Year.
It was packed 4 times over capacity, families crossing the Tigris River at a theme park in Mosul, northern Iraq.
European leaders have agreed to delay Brexit for 2 months. Theresa May will now attempt to get her deal through a third time, even though MPs appear likely to reject it again.
Increasingly isolated, increasingly desperate.
Good morning.
The UK's leading business group has issued a rare joint statement with the Trade Unions Congress, begging Theresa May to change her approach. They warn the country is facing a national emergency and that a no-deal Brexit would bring an economic shock felt for generations. In London, Laurel Irving, 7 News.
Now to the United States, where video's been released of the moment a high-wire rehearsal went terribly wrong, sending performers crashing to the ground. There was no safety net and 5 of them were seriously hurt.
My mouth is wired shut. I broke every bone in my face.
The accident happened back in 2017, but it's the first time the video has been seen. Stay with us here on Prime7. Sports on the way, including the very latest in rugby league and the season-ending injury for a star of the AFL. Two of the NRL opening round's most impressive winners are battling in Canberra tonight, where we saw the first Viking clap of the season before the Storm struck first against the Raiders. Melbourne lead 14-0 at the break. And in the AFL, 85,000 fans watched Richmond beat Carlton in the season opener last night, but the Tigers lost superstar defender Alex Rance for the year with a knee injury. There's 2 cyclone emergencies unfolding tonight. Those details next, and we'll have a preview of a new movie about one of our nation's defining moments. Two cyclone emergencies are unfolding in the north of the country tonight. Western Australia is bracing for Veronica, with meteorologists warning it could be the biggest tropical cyclone to hit the area in more than 5 years. It's expected to strengthen to a Category 5 before making landfall between Karratha and Port Hedland this weekend. This system could bring up to 400 millimetres of rain in a single day. And the largest ever pre-storm evacuation is taking place across the Northern Territory, with entire communities needing emergency accommodation. That's as Cyclone Trevor makes landfall. The cyclone is expected to arrive as a Category 4 system early tomorrow morning, with wind gusts of around 275 kilometres an hour. Now for the latest of our weather, here's Elly Wicks.
Good evening. Like we've just seen, we are still tracking twin cyclones as we head into the weekend. Cyclone Veronica is now a Category 5, packing winds close to 280 kilometres an hour. She is expected to cross near Karratha later this weekend or early next week. Cyclone Trevor is working back towards a Category 4 storm with winds up to 225 kilometres an hour as he makes landfall on the Northern Territory this weekend. Now, that system looks more likely to increase our rain chances as we head into mid next week. More details on that on Monday, though, as we get closer. But the rainfall chart is looking very positive. A warm and humid day across the state tomorrow. A few showers and storms about as well. And if you're heading interstate, well, both cyclones are affecting the west and eastern parts of the country. Looks like Adelaide could be the only dry state tomorrow. Liz?
Thanks, Elly. Finally tonight, 18 young Australians who lost their lives at the Battle of Long Tan have been honoured in a new film. A colonel featured in the movie is gravely ill and was today granted a special screening.
An unusual crowd for an afternoon movie. Cadets from Duntroon's Long Tan Company join one soldier who lived. Tim Lester, 7 News.
And that's your news for this Friday, the 22nd of March, election eve across New South Wales. Liberal Premier Gladys Berejiklian spent the final day talking families and cost of living, while Labor leader Michael Daly pitched on education, energy and the stadium's controversy. The result of the election is likely to go down to the wire, and the state faces the high likelihood of a hung parliament. Prime7 will broadcast special coverage as the polls close, and the count begins from 5 p.m. tomorrow. But for now, from the entire team, have a lovely weekend. Good night.